Hello everybody, I am Antonia and this is Noel and we are from Boxtail Soup Theatre Company and this is another of our Boxtail Scoops.
I'm so happy that you're on board.
I'm fully on board.
Where do we go
even
from
knew
here?
to do a celebratory dance for getting it right this week because I am that on board.
Nice.
I don't know where we go from here. Maybe you'll add another move and then that'll really throw me off. This week we decided we would do you a progress report because we have been very busy in the studio making various things. Noel has been working on the set while I have been working on costumes. So I'm going to hand over to Noel first, who's going to talk to you about what he's been doing with this set.
Sure. So, obviously for this show, there is probably more set, I think, than we've ever built before.
For a single show, probably, yes.
I think so.
That's probably true.
Not by a huge margin, but
No.
partly because of the nature of the show and partly because it's supposed to be in the main house at the Cheltenham Everyman. So we've got a slightly larger space to fill. We wanted to make sure that, although we never put anything on stage that's kind of...
superfluous.
Yeah, we also wanted to make sure that it sort of felt like it was appropriate for the space, that it filled the space. So what you can see behind me just about is the frame for the main part of the centre of the set, which is, it's okay to say, isn't it? It's going to be a door. It's a little bit tricky because obviously it's got to be freestanding, it's got to open, it's got to do a bunch of other stuff as well. So this was really, if you watched our Instagram at all this week, then you will have seen that I've had various headaches with cutting angled pieces of wood and getting struts and things.
We had to buy him a protractor. I don't think I've used one of those since I was at school.
I know, I thought we had one, but apparently not.
We didn't.
So we had to buy a protractor, that's how bad it got. But this door is really probably the most complicated piece of the set. Everything else is really stuff that we've done before. Everything else is based on fairly simple wooden stands. There might be a few little tricks and things that move on them, but they're just basic wooden stands with 4 feet at the bottom. This thing here has got to be a freestanding door that opens, that has a little sign on the top, and where the door itself moves in various other ways throughout the show as we use it for other things as well. I'll try and share a picture of it because obviously we can't get it all in here. It's not that interesting to look at the moment particularly.
It's an unusual shape and I think that's what you were struggling with, wasn't it? It's not like a normal, just a rectangular standard door shape. We wanted to go for something a little bit abstract.
Yeah, there's not a single right angle in the whole thing, so everything is sort of 5 degrees here and 84 degrees here, which makes it really, really tricky to put together. I can't overstate how pleased I am that it actually fits and everything sits comfortably and looks all right. So that's what I've been doing. I'm going to carry on with that today, and hopefully by the end of the day I'll have the actual doors fitted into it and working. Fingers crossed.
And meanwhile, I've been working on the costuming for the show, so I decided to start with the human costumes before I move on to the puppet costumes next week. So everything is really Christmassy, so much so that I felt like I'd wear my green Christmassy-ish jumper to go with it all. But this is the first thing I made, which is a waistcoat for the character Fred, who is Scrooge's nephew, who I think basically kind of embodies the Christmas spirit. He's always trying to get Scrooge to come and join in the festivities. I'm really pleased with it. It's lovely colours. It's got a nice little bit of detailing on the back. Lovely. I've done some more of these little red covered buttons to go on to the front, but I just need to work out. The thing with the costumes for our shows is so often that they need to be, not only do they need to look nice, obviously, hopefully, but they also need to be very practical in terms of quick change. In this show particularly, have to throw costumes on and off very quickly. We're used to doing this, and waistcoats are usually, the base of a sort of waistcoat, something without sleeves is the best kind of thing to quick change into because you've not got to fight your way through a sleeve. So that's the important thing. When we get to rehearsals again, I'll work out whether I've got time to fasten it or not, and that depends on where I put the buttons. That's why they're not on yet. But that's that one. And then I made, I'm playing various different characters, I think that's okay to say.
Yeah.
And therefore I wanted to give myself a slight belly for one of them. So this is stuffed, this waistcoat. You can possibly tell, I don't know whether the camera shows it very well, maybe if I put it to the side. So I was pleased that this actually worked because it was just a guess. But basically I just made the waistcoat like normal, but instead of, before I stitched the two sides together, I stuffed the middle to give him a kind of belly. Once it's on, I think it looks quite cool. Again, it's lovely Christmassy fabric. We've gone for relatively traditional Victorian shapes I've tried to go for, and the kind of fabrics that are not too far from what you might have seen in that era, although with a little poetic license, because I wanted them to be lovely and bright and Christmassy.
I think that goes hand in hand with what we were saying about our approach to adaptations in general, in that you don't want to disrespect the source material, you want to keep the sense of it. And
not that if you were to modernise something you'd be disrespecting it, it's just that that's not how we would, what we decided to do.
No, but we would choose something that we feel is respectful of where the story came from.
Yeah, of the era, yeah. But it doesn't have to be, we're not a sort of slave to exact. I think we can't be, mostly because of the fact that we do have to quick change costumes, we play multiple roles. It's not very practical, is it, to imagine that you're going to be able to put on a full tailcoat, trouser, different thing for each character. So
what I'm getting at really is that it's a balancing act between the innovation and kind of being faithful to the story, or giving the sense of.
So we hope with this that we are doing that. And then the one I made yesterday, which was a bit more of a headache and is quite large, I actually don't know if I'm going to get it into the shot, but I mean you might get the top of it, is, well, you can guess, if you like, which one this is for. I'm trying to find the top of it. Here we go. So this is it's super Christmassy, sparkly, it's going to look lovely under the lights. Again, I've bulked out the shoulders with stuffing, like toy stuffing, and it's got this lovely white fluffy lining to it, edging rather, which is going to be a bit of a nightmare because it likes to deposit everywhere, but I think it looks a bit like snow when it falls off, so it's very pretty. It's massive, this costume, so I can't really show it to you, but you can. It
looks hilarious when she's wearing it.
In a good way, I think.
Oh yeah, in a fantastic way. Yeah, it suddenly sort of broadens your shoulders to that of like a American football linebacker.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever the position would be.
So that's that one, which I'm really pleased worked, because I had a couple of moments with it thinking, oh dear, this just looks ridiculous in a bad way, but in fact it came together in the end. Today I'm going to be making the costume for the Ghost of Christmas Past. And then moving on to a more complicated one, which I need Noel to help with the structural integrity of the thing, the inside. It's sort of got to have a cage, which then the costume is built around for a very particular moment that we've got to do in the show. So Noel's going to have to help me with that because I'm not so good at that. Well, you made a mock-up for our R&D, which worked quite well.
It worked.
It was the bucket hips thing. If you saw them on Instagram, you might have seen. We made some cardboard pizza box bucket hips for Noel to wear.
And they worked surprisingly well.
And they did, and so you've got to make a kind of real version of that so I can then cover it with the fabric. But it's going so well so far, and it's very Christmassy. Oh, and then, yes, I forgot. So next week, I'll be working on the puppet costumes. Now for these, there's one very specific requirement, which is that they're not too heavy. So as much as I wanted them to have, you're right holding him, as much as I wanted them to have the style of the time, they need to be light. So I've done this thing where I've basically used, this is a mock-up, not the real thing. I'm going to be using a shirt as a basis, which I'm then going to be cutting. You can see what I've done with it here, probably. I'm basically remaking it into a tailcoat. So darting it where I need to, redoing the collar, cutting off the cuffs, and cutting off the buttons in the middle, which I then use in fact as the back, little piece of the back to make it look more authentically tailcoat-like. And then the rest of it, the trouser and the waistcoat, are suggestions of, and in fact they're just a piece that's going to be stitched in there and there, so that again you're not adding layers and extra weight, you're just adding the bit that's visible effectively. And with the trousers, they're just actually a loop of fabric that I've then folded and pieced together here and pinned together at the bottom. So it's they're a kind of suggestion of all of the things without having to have any weight, as well as little weight added as possible.
You want them to be as light as possible because all of the weight really is resting on
the top of your hand,
the back of your hand. So yeah, you need them to be nice and light to be able to use them for any length of time.
And also to give them the most amount of movement possible, I think. When they start to get really heavy, the head gets restricted. So yes, that's what I'm going to be moving on to next week. And it's a similar thing for the girls, using a kind of shirt top and then adding a skirt and quite thin fabric. So there, yeah.
I think one of the lovely things about all of this is that, as we've said with the puppets, I think, when we started out, they were the first puppets that we'd made, and we very much learned and developed as we've gone along. And I think the same is true here. I would never have dreamt of trying to build something like this when we started out. And it's been a bit of a challenge, but it's nice to go, you know, that extra couple of steps with every new show and every new piece of work that you do. And I don't know, I mean, you hadn't really made a lot of
No, I
clothing.
hadn't made clothing before. I'd done a tiny bit of sewing when I was at school and when I was at university, but not really. And I think I would have been very nervous. I mean, I adapted clothing for the first show we did. I made dresses for the puppets out of shirts and an old bed valance, but there was no expectation of it being good, so I sort of just felt my way through it. And then I've definitely grown in confidence over the years.
Yeah, I mean, the waistcoats that you're making now, I'd be happy to wear them out. You know, they're absolutely, they look like
Christmas do.
Yeah, absolutely. You look like you know, you could buy them in a shop.
Oh,
They're very smart. And for some of it, of course, there's no way of looking it up. You know, for making the big green costume that you've got there, for making a tailcoat out of a shirt.
no.
You're very much feeling your way in the dark and figuring it out
Or
as you go
making a
along.
weird shaped door.
Or making a weird shaped door. Yeah. So it's all good fun, exciting. Necessity is truly the mother of invention.
Thank you very much for watching. Again, I think that's the end, unless you've got anything else to say for yourself. No, me neither. So thank you very much, and please do all the things that you're supposed to do, which is...
Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave us a comment, and let us know if there's anything in particular you'd like to see. That would be lovely. Thanks very much for watching.